Thanks for tuning in to the Women's Vibrancy Code, a podcast dedicated to helping women move from exhausted to energized, balance their hormones, and feeling turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. I'm your host, Maraya Brown. I'm a Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, keynote speaker, and self-made entrepreneur. I'm the founder of my signature program, the Women's Vibrancy Code. So sit back, relax, and let's chat about your energy, hormones, libido, and embracing your feminine power. Oh, and you might want to have pen and paper to take some notes on some of these episodes. All right, for everyone out there listening, let's talk about how smart business owners can be smart with their taxes. So this is a little bit of a different type of episode, not just talking about health, but it is talking about health because we're talking about the health of how you care for yourself and your business and your financial well-being and your tax well-being each day, each week, each month, each year. And so I am so thrilled to have with me Miss Wanda Watson with Premier Business Solutions. Wanda, it says MBA EA. I know what an MBA is. What is an EA?
An EA is an enrolled agent. So when most business owners think about hiring an accountant, they say, okay, I need to get me a C.P.A, right? Mm-hmm. So CPAs are certified in the state in which they practice, and enrolled agents are certified with the Internal Revenue Service. So that's the difference. So we have a requirement to maintain 78 hours of continuing education credits every 3 years. So basically where they're overseeing us, whereas those CPAs are being monitored by the Board of Accountancy in the state in which they practice.
Okay. And so already I've got a question. I haven't even read your bio.
Okay.
So if there's someone who's listening, I imagine you predominantly work with individuals that own their own businesses. Is that fair?
That is fair.
Yeah.
98% of our clients are business owners. Absolutely.
Okay. So let's say we own a business, and how do we decipher when it's time to hire a CPA versus an EA?
Well, many CPAs, they have their enrolled agent designation, whereas though you may encounter an enrolled agent who does not have the CPA designation, right? Okay. So, and believe it or not, I've met CPAs who do not do taxes, right? Okay. That was shocking to me. I thought all CPAs do taxes, but that's not the case as well. Okay. So here's the thing. The exam for enrolled agents is strictly tax law for the most part, whereas though the CPAs, their exam is accounting with tax included. If you have a tax matter, certainly I would say you want an enrolled agent who can mediate on your behalf with the Internal Revenue Service. When I say a tax matter, meaning you owe a good amount of taxes, you've gotten these notices of liens and levies, the IRS is coming after your house or garnishing your wages, right? Because you have some business owners who are employed as well. Then you probably want an enrolled agent on your side.
Okay. I know Wanda really well. And so I've been supporting her along her health journey. And so, I imagine we're going to have a banter that covers lots of different things regarding the health of our bodies as we show up as entrepreneurs and business owners, but also the health of our financial well-being. And so hence I bring Wanda in to talk about taxes. So Wanda Watson, a tax strategist, is the owner and founder of Premier Business Solutions, a tax planning and accounting firm located in Chesapeake, Virginia, which services clients throughout the U.S. Premier Business Solutions flagship service consists of assisting elite entrepreneurs with saving thousands of dollars in taxes and increasing profits. Yes, please. They also provide services to include IRS negotiations, tax preparations, and outsourced CFO services for businesses. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. Wanda is licensed with the IRS as an enrolled agent. She holds an MBA in accounting from Colorado Technical University and a BS in accounting from Old Dominion University. Prior to establishing Premier Business, I saw that for those of you in the podcast, he's like, whoop, whoop, alma mater, go, go.
Yes.
Old Dominion lights you up, I take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So prior to establishing Premier Business Solutions, Wanda worked as senior staff accountant for a Virginia C.P.A. firm, a managing staff accountant for a Fortune 500 accounting firm, as well as an accounting technician for the armed forces in travel disbursements, paying and collecting, and the commissary. So her passion is enabling the taxpayer to save on taxes while remaining compliant and assisting taxpayers who find themselves in the unfortunate situation of needing assistance mediating with the IRS. Okay, so Wanda, if someone were to come to you and say, what's your one piece of advice? I'm running a business. I'm new. I've just filed for my S corp. I'm bringing in a couple 6-figure income and trying to figure out what's my next step. What is from all of the things that you've learned and all of the messes that you've seen and cleaned up from, what would be your first, just like one piece of advice?
Or an accountant.
Hire an accountant.
There you go. Hire an accountant. Because there are many business owners, they're like, oh, well, I keep my records. I have a spreadsheet. And it's like, no. Mm-hmm. They're leaving so much money on the table and they're totally unaware. Right. Okay. So when you have your spreadsheet, you're keeping track of, all of your, cash going out, maybe even your credit cards or what have you, but you're missing out on things like the interest from your credit cards or your bank fees and things of that sort. And they may seem a little, minor initially, but they really add up, right? Mm-hmm. Especially for business owners who's using credit cards where the interest rate is, right, a little high. So definitely hire an accountant who's going to monitor your account, reconcile your account on a monthly basis, and meet with you on a quarterly basis, right? Mm-hmm. Because, your estimated tax payments are due quarterly and you need to know how much to send in. Yeah. Right. And as you alluded to, profit first, if you're using the profit first model, then that money is there for your taxes and your tax account.
Yeah. If for those of you listening, if you haven't read the Profit First book, it's good. Okay. So what about why not just bring in a bookkeeper? What if it's a bookkeeper that uses QuickBooks? They can reconcile your taxes. And what is it? I don't even know all the words, the chart of accounts at the end of every month. Can that suffice?
A bookkeeper is good. I mean, I have some clients who actually have in-house bookkeepers, right? Mm-hmm. So they are going through and they're reconciling. Where I come in as an accountant, right? Therefore, I'm overseeing what they've entered and what needs to be categorized differently or what needs to be depreciated that may have been expensed and things of that sort, or what's missing. What have you not captured? Because we want to make sure we capture everything. There are expenses that are recognized and there are expenses that are realized, right? So the difference is they're realized if it's money out of pocket, right? You're using your card, money out of pocket. They're recognized like depreciating an asset or recognizing the business use of your home, which is really still money out of pocket. However, in most cases, if you're not a business owner, that business use of the home deduction is not beneficial, right? You can't use it, right? So we want to make sure that the business owner is capturing everything that's realized and then coming behind them saying, let's make sure we pick up everything that's recognized, because you'll hear me say time and time again, my goal is to make sure you keep more of what you make versus sending it to the Internal Revenue Service. Mm-hmm.
In my world, it's like going and seeing your PCP for all your symptoms. Like, sure, they can order some basic labs. They've got you. They can prescribe you another medication. Or you can come in and we can do some real broad work and look under the hood with functional tests and look at the functional lab values versus the diagnostic lab values So you can
Yeah,
actually feel spectacular. And
that's
so you're
good.
talking through the lens of your finances and your taxes feeling spectacular at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's good. I like that analogy.
Yeah. Okay. How would you describe in your own words what you do?
Well, I say I am the elite or the tax strategist for the elite entrepreneur, right? And the elite entrepreneur is that entrepreneur that's making multiple six figures and more, who is looking to make their business work for them, right? Because you get into entrepreneurship, and in many cases, it's to leave a legacy for your family or, have a better quality of life or whatever the case may be. Everybody has their reasons. So we actually sit down with our clients and we find out what their reasons are. And then based on their goals, right, in their current situation, then that helps us determine a strategy for them over time. And we go through that each year and see what strategies we can actually put in place for them, right? Whether you have children, and how old are your children? Are your children old enough to employ, if you will?
Mm-hmm.
And the tax standard deduction, can you pay them up to that 12,000, depending on what they're doing and their age, of course, and then reduce and write that off of your taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or deduct it from your revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not taxable to them. There's no tax implications on their side. So we look at all of that, your children going to college and, your retirement fund, or whether you have a health savings account, all of those things.
I imagine, I love it because I'm like, yes, check. We've got an LLC set up for the kids and they're employed and we've got the Augusta rule. And when you said you're establishing with your clients goals and strategies, I kind of went, well, what are some examples? And I thought, for purpose of other goals.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I have one now who's like, I want to buy my beach home this year. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So definitely a good question. And really it's a little bit of a struggle. Mm-hmm. Because really, if you need to show X amount of dollars, then you can't be as aggressive with the tax code, as you would normally be. Mm-hmm. Right. So it obviously depends on total revenue coming in and what we have to work with and where they need to be as far as, their bottom line, how they need to look on paper to the banker and what have you. So in most cases, they do end up paying more taxes than they would ordinarily, Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, we can be a little less aggressive this year, but next year we're doing it and taking everything that we're entitled to.
Right. So when it comes to goals and strategies, it's not just thinking a year in advance, but as potentially 3-5 years in advance, so we can really think and plan for, okay, kids are going to be in college. I want to buy an investment home, whatever it may be.
Right.
And, I'm sitting here looking at you and I'm like, oh, I remember when we were at the last retreat that I hosted in June and the energy of boundary setting. And, as we weave into the health of our taxes and the health of our business, and of course, I'm like, there is no health to a business if you're burning yourself to the ground and there's no health within your body and your family and your relationships and your love and all that, as well as boundary setting. And so then I imagine that kind of weaves in. And so as a tax strategist and as a woman, and as a business owner yourself, how do you incorporate boundary setting and also relay that to your clients? It's a big question. Well, dropping a bomb, ready? Boom.
Yes, that's a big question. And, Maraya, I just have to say that before you, there was very little boundary setting for me. When we met, oh my goodness, I was just a mess. I can say I was just a mess. And it was, the why was being pulled from very different directions, children, even though they're grown, and mom that has dementia and, and then the business itself, running a business and having employees, I was really, really just a mess. So I have learned a lot. Mm-hmm. A lot of self-care. thanks to you, I understand things more, like even from the Dutch test, like why am I feeling kind of down at certain hours or what have you? And I mean, down energetically and, and how to, incorporate the adaptogen elixirs and things like that to make my body feel more, vibrant or what have you. So more energy. So I do talk to my client about boundary setting. I talk to my clients about mindset. That's one thing that makes me different than a lot of accountants. We have those conversations because really, if your mindset around money is not what it needs to be, is not healthy, then you're going to continue in that spiral of taking distributions in excess of your, retained earnings or in excess of your W-2s. And then when it comes time to pay your taxes, you don't have it. And you push against the profit first model because you want to spend this money in other ways, and really your money mindset is really contingent on, a lot of times it's a result of your upbringing, right? Like what you were taught about money as a child. So that's one thing that definitely makes us different. But I say, if you just bring it full circle, I really got to that point as a result of working with you.
Thank you. And that makes me happy to hear. And I think it's inevitable that as a woman and as a business owner are learning to set your boundaries with health and with love and with strength, you then convey that to your clients. And of course, we need to practice healthy boundary setting when it comes to how we see our money and how we prepare for our taxes, as well as trusting that more is coming. I mean, I imagine I imagine that you're a quote unquote by the book tax strategist, but there's also fluidity there, and to acknowledge that we're also human beings and we're potent, powerful manifestors.
Absolutely. Money is energy, right? Right. So, you don't have to hold tightly, you know what I mean? You can, do the right things, or say the right things, or allocate it to certain things that will be beneficial for you in the past and not hold on to it. In the future, and not hold on to it because you're afraid of letting it go. I truly believe that money is energy. Yes.
Makes me think one of my other clients, I think, Kathleen Cameron, I'm like hearing her words in the back of my head. My interpretation of her words is that it's all around circulation. That there's like this, we have to circulate money out if we're wanting money to circulate in. And I'm just envisioning you get to be there to help ensure that there's the paperwork trail. Yeah. As individuals are learning to run their businesses and circulate money in a really healthy and grounded way and address our belief systems, but also be smart to make sure that we're not purging and paying the IRS more than we need to and planning for the future. So
advantage of the SEP, you can put it's up to like $56,000 now from your bottom line into that SEP. And of course, it depends on your wages and your nets. So there's a formula. But you can put that into a retirement account, provided that you meet you check all the boxes, right? And so you put that $56,000 in an account and then take that off of your bottom line. Can you imagine the substantial savings that you would have? Right. Going forward.
So it becomes another deduction. So now we're not paying taxes on that $56K.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, the SEP is simple, and, it can be, the 401 and what have you, as well through your payroll. So there's just so many different avenues of putting money aside, preparing for your future that you're entitled to as a business owner that many business owners don't take advantage of. And that's normally the number one item that we're hitting with in our meetings.
Awesome. And at what point, so let's say there's a new entrepreneur who's just getting started, hasn't even crossed over their first 6 figures. When is the right time, ideally, to start bringing in a tax strategist? I heard multiple 6-figure, that range. I imagine you work with 7, 8-figure earners.
Yes.
What would you say, like, if you could look back and start over again for yourself or some of the clients that come to you, when is the best time to start
with a tax strategist?
Yeah.
Typically around that 6-figure or multiple 6-figure mark, because here's the thing, you're making sure you're directing your net income in other ways that are beneficial to you. And that's your net income, including your salary, right? But you have to have something to work with, right? So as a new entrepreneur, you want to make sure you do have that relationship with an accountant or bookkeeper or what have you. You may not be able to absorb the funding for a tax strategist at that time, right? But you do want to work with someone who at least is privy to the tax code that can help you on one level. And then as you grow, then yes, you do want to connect yourself with a tax strategist.
So we're talking an entrepreneur who's set up as either a C Corp or an S Corp or an LLC, probably. They're already bringing in $300,000 a year or more. They have some 1099 contractors. They probably have 1 or 2 W-2 employees potentially. And now they're saying, okay, it's time for me to get really smart with how are we doing this from a strategy perspective. And so it sounds like, when I think about how your firm is different from the average accounting firm, number one, I'm hearing it includes some mindset and coaching around boundary setting. It's long-term strategy. It's specifically for the entrepreneur or the business owner who's already having some success and probably wanting to have tremendous success. Do you have a lot of clients that are already in the 7 and 8-figure space?
We have, I won't say a lot in the 7 and 8-figure space, but definitely the multiple 6-figure space, leading up to 7. Yeah. But if you come to me and you're making $200,000-$300,000 or more as a single member LLC, the first thing we're probably going to do is switch you to an S Corp. Because you're paying self-employment tax in addition to your federal tax and then perhaps your state, depending on the state in which you reside. And that's going to save you 15.3% right off the bat.
Okay. And isn't it true that as an S Corp, you can decide if you want to file as an LLC or an S Corp, or is it the other way around?
It's the other way around.
Okay.
And that's why, so if you're a single member LLC, you're filing your return on a Schedule C as if you were a sole proprietor. Right. Okay. So whatever that bottom line is, your net profit is subject to 15.3%, which is self-employment and Medicare, Social Security and Medicare. Again, you can cut that amount in half if you were to convert to an S Corp.
All right, cool. I love this conversation. As I'm hearing you crunch numbers, I'm like, what if this is how, when people are listening to me and I'm like, I want your TSH between 1 and 2, and we got to get your free T4 and your free T3 and your reverse T3. And it's like, kind of glazing over a little bit. And I could see how it's really important to make sure that we get to stay in our lane.
Yeah, for sure.
We want to build these businesses because we're passionate about offering a service out in the world. And we're crazy enough to do it on our own rather than the stability of like, let me just go clock in, clock out, get paid by someone else and have the stability there. Like you're working with those of us that are big, up to big things. And we want to create big legacy. And you're helping us really be smart with what does that look like in the short term and the long term. So just how else is your firm different than the average accounting firm?
Yeah. Well, I just think in a nutshell, we have a relationship with our clients. I've been told multiple times as we're crunching numbers or even talking about what they did or didn't do, it may be devastating to them. And I've had clients that look at me and say, well, I can't tell what you're thinking. Your facial expression doesn't change. And so here's the thing. It's like, well, it's not changing because I respect the fact that you did the best that you could do, but now you have me. Right now, we're going to make a change. I'm not going to judge you for what you didn't know. Right. So no, my facial expression hasn't changed. I have one client that owes IRS over $1 million. Now, we're going to work with them. We don't judge, but we do have that relationship. So, they're just not another number for us.
Wow. That feels so heavy in my body. What it makes me think of is in the health world, I go, okay, come to me before you're a train wreck.
Yes.
Like, I would like to work with the female entrepreneurs that are out there building the successful business, wanting to have the legacy. And maybe you're feeling tired. Maybe there's some mood instability. Maybe your libido's gone. Maybe you're not sleeping. Maybe you're putting on some extra weight, whatever it may be. Like, sure, they can go to their PCP once again, get another prescription, and then 2 years down the road, they come in as a train wreck in your scenario, owing $1 million to the IRS. And of course, I love a good challenge to come in. All right, let's go in and see what we can do to really change the foundation. But it's also so much more fun to go, let's get in there and start really creating some health in our bodies. In your scenario, health in our taxes. So that we never get to know the things that we've prevented.
Right. Exactly.
And we get to invest. We get to invest in ourselves. We get to invest in our business, to hire someone that's there to give us the hand holding and the strategy that we maybe don't know. Not just cookie cutter, go down to the H&R Block.
Right. Exactly.
Or to your PCP around the corner that finished med school, maybe haven't taken one nutrition class.
Right.
So then for the client who comes to you and already owes $1 million to the IRS, and anyone who has substantial tax liabilities and they're not able to pay, what do you do in that scenario?
Well, we roll up our sleeves. We have them sign in Form 2848, which is an IRS power of attorney. And we contact the IRS on their behalf. That's where it starts. Mm-hmm. And basically, in many cases, we're letting them know we're working with this client and we need you to put a freeze on collection activity. And typically, depending on the situation, we'll get a 30 to 60-day freeze. And then we're sitting down and we're trying to find out, first of all, what does it consist of? How many years? What's your current situation? What's your ability to pay? What's your personal financial statement look like? Because we need to know all this. This gives us ammunition, if you will, when we go back to the Internal Revenue Service. It may be such that they don't have the ability to pay. And we can get a freeze put on collection activity that 60 days can then go to 24 months. It could be a situation where they have a little bit of money, but not enough to cover it. And we can go in and make an offer. We know they owe you $100,000, but will you accept 60 and write off 40, right? And in some cases, they will. And I've seen it actually go lower than that, right? That's called an offer in compromise. So I know I owe you X amount of dollars, but I can't pay that. And you won't get that from me over a 5 or 6 year span, because that's what they look for, your ability to pay it over 5 or 6 years. But here, I'm going to offer you this lump sum. Will you accept this and abate the rest, write off the rest? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's an option as well. Yeah. And then there are different things. There's called a graduated payment plan. Like right now, I can't pay you $1,000 a month, but I can pay you maybe $200 or $300, and they'll accept that for 12 to 18 months. And after 18 months, that $200 or $300 then goes to maybe $400 or $500. So there are definitely many different options. Yeah. I have one story I love to share.
Yeah.
I have a couple. And the husband won the lottery. He won the lottery before they got married, but he didn't pay taxes on it. Then they got married, and then they have this child who is handicapped. And over the years, they've converted their home to accommodate the child. And then the IRS comes in. We want it all. We want your house. We want and. The lady, she was to the point where she wasn't sleeping at night. She was stressing. She was crying, calling me crying. And when all was said and done, I went toe to toe. I was like, you cannot do this, because he owned the home, they were going to make them sell their house. And I was like, first of all, it's, handicap, accessible or whatever for the child. You have to take those things into consideration. And, they wanted to take the van, but the van also was accommodating him. But anyway, when all was said and done, I told them to take the husband had a little roadster, his toy. He had a couple cars that were toys. You can take those, but you can't touch the house. You can't touch her van and what have you. And it went away. It went away. And for that particular person to call me and say, thank you so much, I'm now able to sleep at night. That was really touching.
Yeah.
I love those stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's really why I do what I do.
Yeah. It's not just about helping people build wealth and legacy, which is important and valuable, but also for those of you that are listening that are like, I am embarrassed to say this, but I've been disorganized. That's kind of judgmental. I didn't prepare. And all of a sudden I've got this big tax burden on my shoulders and I don't know what to do. Or in my scenario, I haven't been taking care of myself and I was just diagnosed with XYZ thing, or this thing's going on and I don't know what to do. The good news is there's support out there. And so Wanda's agency as a starting point to say, here's my scenario. And I feel like I'm drowning. Like I often hear women say, I feel trapped in my life, my marriage, and my body. Sounds like in your scenario, I feel trapped in my finances. They're going to take my home. I don't know what I'm going to do. But to know that there are solutions out there. It reminds me when I was in my early 20s and I left the corporate world to go become a midwife. And I booked a 1-year around the world trip. And the year before I left, I was, in Fortune 50, 6-figure income. And a friend of mine who was very wealthy, young guy, I dated him a little bit. He's like, I can do your taxes for you. I'm really smart. I do my own. And so he'd done my taxes and I was so excited. I got this big return. And then while I was on the around the world trip, I was volunteering in West Africa, in Ghana. I'd already been accepted at Yale, which was so exciting, but it was also like, gulp, I'm going to be paying $43,000 a year to go to Yale. And I get an email. This was back in the time when there was no Wi-Fi. So, you have to go into the internet cafe and pay for 10 minutes to check my email. And my stepmom had sent me an email because she was collecting all the mail. And she said, you've been audited by the IRS. And you owe, I don't remember what it was, like so many thousands of dollars. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, first of all, I'm like on an around the world trip. So can we just put them on pause? But luckily they she helped a little bit and they set up payments and I paid it off. I think it was over 2 or 3 years that it extended and it just became monthly payments. And, I'm so grateful, but I'll tell you, when I got that letter, my heart sank,
Yes.
And of course I felt so mad at myself for letting some random person that he owned his own business and he thought he knew what he was doing. And I was 24 years old. I was like, okay, fine. But at least from that, what I'm hearing is, hire someone who's really trained and has a track record, and you can see some validation and some testimonials for the work that they do. And I'm also hearing there's no train wreck that's too extreme.
Right.
We get to ask for help.
Absolutely. And then back to like what you do. I mean, you come to you and with your experience, your training and the natural remedies or whatever, it can be fixed, right? So it's the same. It's the same. I like how you put that. There's no train wreck. Yeah.
There's no train wreck that's too big.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it gives you meaning in your life.
Yeah. That's the part. I do love that part. I love both sides though, right? Because I'm their biggest cheerleader. Make those 7, 8, 9 figures, you know what I mean? Whatever the case may be, I'm your biggest cheerleader. I'm going to help you get there and I'm going to help you pay as little in tax as possible, right? A lot of people say, well, how do certain people like not pay money, and they make so much money? It's like, well, they're smart about it. They create a charitable trust and they do different things to that they can write off. You know what I mean? But it's still beneficial to them. So that's the things that we talk about.
And so you're there as their strategist, no matter the scenario that you're in, as long as there's some health to your business already and you're established.
Right.
Then if you're wanting to grow and expand and make your money work for you and be smart with your taxes, great. If you're in a place that you didn't expect, that feels a little bit crushing and a little bit embarrassing, it sounds like Wanda's agency is also there. And so in the show notes, we have your social media handles. There's a link for a free tax review. But I also understand that you're very sought after. And so if someone is listening and they want to lean into your work, what are the best steps for someone to take?
Well, they can, tap into the sign into our Calendly link and schedule a 15 minutes. So we have a few each week, 15-minute consults that we'll do at no additional cost or no charge to them at all, actually, for 15 minutes. And you get to talk to me and ask me whatever questions you may have. If you would like to go over the 15 minutes, then we do charge you by the hour. If you would like a review of your prior year tax return, and we kind of give you some pointers as to what we've picked up just from reviewing it, then we'll share those things with you as well. But yeah, that's the best way. And, they can also call the office and, ask to get on my schedule. But the Calendly link is the best way for them to reach me.
Okay. And I see you're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Any other pieces of advice for those that are listening that you just want to leave them with as they're wanting to grow their business and make it become a big legacy for their family and whatever goals that they might personally have? Anything else that just feels like you'd like to add?
Well, I would say invest in themselves, right? And when I say that, invest in yourselves with a tax strategist. Even though you may have that family member, I can do your tax. No. The tax code is huge. And that's why we're required to have 78 hours of continuing education credits every 3 years, right? Invest in a strategist, but invest in yourselves with the tax strategist, with a coach that will help you with mind and body, right? Those things are important for the health of your business, because if you're not healthy, then your business is not healthy.
Right. Yeah. It's so true. We can burn the candle at both ends and stress ourselves out and try to do it all ourselves. But what kind of life is that?
Yes.
Just to have this dream of one day, then I'm going to live my life. How about what is the quote? Life is not measured by the number of breaths that we take, but by the number of moments that take our breath away.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm so appreciative that you're out in the world for those that are really passionate about the work that they do and they want to build a big business, and they also acknowledge that there's value in investing in themselves as individuals, as well as doing the business right and well and crossing their T's and dotting their I's to bring in a tax strategist to support them along their journey. We didn't even talk about the work that your agency does. It sounds like kind of fractional CFO work too. That's super cool. Isn't that right? Did I read that? Yeah.
Yes.
CFO services too. So it's not just tax strategy, but also potentially helping as a CFO.
Absolutely. The budgeting and just everything, and making sure that your percentages are within, the guidelines, that it makes sense, that you're not overspending in marketing and you don't have enough to cover your payroll. And yes, all of that. We have clients all over the U.S. We have one particular client that has offices in 32 states. So, no job is too big or too small. Well, we're there for the consult if you're a smaller business and you would like the consult. But we're definitely there. But yeah, just invest in yourselves and know that it is a tax deduction, that it is deductible.
Right. So that when you hire the coach or you hire the tax strategist, that itself becomes a tax deduction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's an investment in your business, and it's an investment in yourself, and it's an investment to your family because you feel better, and things, are not just all over the place. You're learning how to set those boundaries and what have you.
And this goes live in the podcast. What is it? March 1st, I think. So for those people listening, and tax season is approaching end, for the sake of 2022, is it kind of too late at this point?
Yeah. So I always say that you need to plan throughout the year. That's why you need that tax strategist, right? Because your last estimated tax payment is due January 15th for the previous year. So by December 31st, it's typically too late to make a lot of different changes.
Right.
And that's why you want to stay on top of it throughout the year. So it may be a little late for strategy. And then depending on the entity, because, S Corp, the business use of the home, technically you're supposed to write the check to the officer of the corporation before year end. Whereas if you're a single member LLC, we get to write it off on the tax return. So it really depends on the entity as well.
Okay. So for those of you listening, for your 2023, prepare for the year. And then who knows, maybe she'll come in and say, yes, it is really smart to buy that new BMW in December.
Yes.
And write it off. All right, Wanda, I'm so appreciative of you for so many reasons. I mean, I've loved, we're now going on our second year together, and the conversations that we've had and the intimacy, and I just have big respect for who you are in the world and how you personally invest in yourself and set boundaries and prioritize your well-being. So for those of you listening, she walks her talk. When she says that her agency is standing in holding each of their clients in the light of making themselves a priority and setting their boundaries, I can say from my perspective, she absolutely does that herself. And I'm so grateful that your services are available out in the world for those of us that are building very successful businesses and want to do well and want to create a phenomenal life and legacy for our children and our children's children, to have a strategist in our back pocket and an outsourced CFO if needed, to really make sure that we're doing it well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate you so much as well. And to the community, those who are watching, Maraya is phenomenal. She is phenomenal. So I would just say, just tap into her. She's helped me tremendously. And I really just appreciate, Maraya, for you putting yourself out there for the times that I've reached out to you outside of, the group, because of things that I've had going on, and even tapping into, Michael, and, helping me to kind of maneuver through my life changes, because our parents get older and, we just don't know, but it's a struggle. It's a struggle, especially when you're running a business, but to have you all there for your support and guidance, there's no words. I just appreciate you. Thank you.
We're here for you every step of the way. And when she mentions Michael, that's my husband.
Yes.
he's also stepped in and, offered insight and support in his own way.
I appreciate you both.
I want to give you a big hug.
I know.
All right. Ciao, everybody.